What if I told you that most people aren't searching for God at all? They're searching for comfort, fear protection, and the safety of being right. What if the God you defend so loudly is not the truth you've ever questioned? Because the moment you stop asking questions, faith turns into blindness. So ask yourself, are you really looking for God, or are you afraid of the truth? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. What if everything you believe about God is only half the truth? That single question struck Armin like a quiet storm. It didn't arrive with noise or fear. It arrived with discomfort, a discomfort that refused to leave. Armin was not an atheist. In fact, he was everything people would call religious. He prayed regularly. He visited places of worship with devotion. He followed every ritual exactly the way he was taught. From a very young age, one idea was planted deeply into his mind. This is God. This is the only way. Never question it. And like millions of others, Armin accepted it without hesitation. For years, his life moved forward on autopilot. Prayers, routines, beliefs, repeated daily. On the outside, he looked faithful, but on the inside, something felt incomplete. Every night, after finishing his prayers, Armin sat quietly in his room. Instead of peace, he felt a strange emptiness. Instead of clarity, he felt restlessness. His heart was heavy with a question he was afraid to ask out loud. If I am truly close to God, why do I feel so distant? He tried to ignore it. He told himself that doubt was weakness. That questioning meant losing faith. But the silence inside him grew louder with each passing day. One evening, while cleaning his grandfather's old room, Armin discovered a box filled with dusty books and handwritten papers. As he slowly turned the yellowed pages, one folded note caught his attention. Written in simple ink were words that stopped him completely. People don't search for God, they search for certainty. Armin read it again. And again, those words disturbed him, not because they were wrong, but because they felt true. For the first time, he asked himself something he had never dared to ask before. Was he truly searching for God? Or was he just holding on to beliefs because he was afraid of being wrong? That night, Armin couldn't sleep. His mind replayed every prayer, every ritual, every rule he had followed without understanding. And in that quiet darkness, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He would no longer defend what he believed blindly. He would question, not to rebel, but to understand, not to lose faith, but to discover truth. And with that single decision, Armin's real journey began. Armin started observing the people around him more carefully than ever before. He listened not just to their words, but to their tone, their emotions, and their behavior. What he noticed disturbed him deeply. Some people shouted God's name with anger in their voices. Their faces were tense, their words sharp, as if God needed to be defended through rage. Others fought openly in God's name, arguing, insulting, even hating, while claiming they were on the side of truth. There were also those who judged others harshly, labeling them right or wrong, pure or impure, all while believing they carried divine authority. Armin couldn't understand it. A question kept echoing in his mind. If God is truth, why does his name create so much confusion, division, and hostility? Shouldn't truth bring clarity instead of chaos? Shouldn't God inspire humility instead of pride? Searching for answers, Armin turned to scholars, religious leaders, and preachers. These were people respected by society, people others followed without hesitation. They spoke with confidence and certainty. Their voices were firm. Their explanations sounded polished and complete. But there was one problem. None of them welcomed questions. Whenever Armin gently asked why, the mood changed. The room grew uncomfortable. The response was almost always the same. Don't question, just believe. Those words frightened him, because Armin realized something important. Truth does not fear questions. Lies need protection. Truth stands firm on its own. Slowly, a powerful realization formed in his mind. Most people, he saw, were not truly following God. They were following interpretations, ideas passed down through generations without examination. Beliefs were inherited like family property. People defended them fiercely, not because they understood them, but because those beliefs defined who they were. Faith, Armin noticed, was often mixed with fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of being rejected, fear of losing identity. He saw people defending ideas they had never questioned, repeating words they had never explored deeply. And in doing so, they confused faith with obedience and truth with tradition. One night, alone with his thoughts, Armin asked himself a question that made his heart heavy. Am I worshiping God, or am I just protecting an identity given to me? That question didn't give him answers. It gave him loneliness. Because once you begin to question honestly, you no longer fully belong to the crowd. And Armin understood that his search for truth was becoming deeper, quieter, and far more solitary than he'd ever imagined. One day, Armin made a decision that surprised even himself. He stopped searching outward. He stopped chasing answers in other people's opinions, and stopped hoping that debates would give him clarity. The endless arguments, the loud voices, the need to prove who was right or wrong, it all felt exhausting. He stopped watching debates. He stopped listening to arguments. He stopped trying to win discussions. For the first time, Armin chose silence. He sat alone, away from distractions. No rituals to follow. No words to repeat. No labels to define who he was supposed to be. Just honesty, raw, uncomfortable honesty with himself. At first, the silence felt heavy. His mind raced with questions, doubts, and memories of everything he had been taught. But slowly, something changed. The noise inside him began to fade. And in that quiet space, something unexpected happened. Armin realized that truth does not shout. It does not demand attention. It does not fight to be heard. Truth whispers. It waits patiently for those who are willing to listen. He understood that truth doesn't need crowds, symbols, or loud declarations. It doesn't depend on rituals or repeated words. Truth only needs sincerity, a heart that is genuinely open, not defensive. In that silence, Armin reached another realization. God is not threatened by doubt, but falsehood is. If something collapses the moment it is questioned, then it was never strong to begin with. Real truth welcomes inquiry. It grows stronger when examined. For the first time in his life, Armin felt peace, without having answers, and that peace felt deeper than any certainty he had ever known. It wasn't built on explanations or arguments. It was built on acceptance. Then a shocking understanding settled into his heart. Looking for God without loving truth turns faith into blindness. It creates followers who obey but do not understand. It produces belief without awareness. But looking for truth with sincerity, without ego, fear, or pride, slowly leads you to God. Not the God of arguments and labels, but the God of clarity, humility, and inner peace. Armin realized that he had been searching in the wrong direction all along. The answers were not hidden in noise, debates, or fear. They were found in stillness, honesty, and courage. That quiet moment didn't give him all the answers, but it changed everything. Armin eventually discovered what he came to believe was the most dangerous lie ever told to humanity. God belongs to one side. This single idea, simple yet destructive, has divided people for centuries. It has drawn invisible lines between hearts, turned neighbors into enemies, and transformed faith into a battlefield. Under this belief, cruelty has often been justified, and compassion has been silenced, all in the name of God. Armin began to see a painful pattern. Whenever people claimed ownership of God, something within them changed. They stopped listening to truth, because truth became whatever supported their side. They stopped seeing humanity, because labels replaced faces. And slowly, almost without realizing it, they stopped loving. In those moments, God was no longer a source of guidance. God became a weapon. Faith was no longer about humility or growth. Faith became pride, and truth, once sacred, became optional. Armin noticed that people who believed they were absolutely right rarely asked questions. They spoke loudly but listened very little. They defended their beliefs not with understanding, but with anger and fear. And the more they claimed to stand for God, the further they seemed from compassion. But as Armin continued his search, he discovered something quietly powerful. Real truth behaves very differently. Real truth does not inflate the ego. It humbles you. It reminds you how little you know. It softens your judgments and opens your heart. It makes you kinder, more patient, and more human. Armin learned that God is not found in arguments meant to defeat others, but in integrity, the courage to live honestly even when it's difficult. God is not found in hatred disguised as righteousness, but in honesty, the willingness to admit doubt and imperfection. And God is not found in blind following, but in conscious understanding, where belief is chosen, not inherited. This realization changed the questions Armin asked. He stopped asking, "Who is right?" because that question demands sides. Instead, he began asking, "What is true?" because truth does not belong to anyone. That single shift freed him from fear, from pride, and from a need to defend an identity. He no longer felt the urge to win arguments or prove superiority. He felt lighter, calmer, and more grounded. For the first time, Armin understood that when truth becomes a goal, faith becomes a journey, not a weapon. And in that understanding, he finally felt free. After years of searching, wandering through doubt, questions, and moments of deep confusion, Armin finally reached a realization so simple that it almost seemed obvious in hindsight. You don't have to choose between God and truth. You don't have to put one above the other. What you truly choose is sincerity, the willingness to seek honestly, to question without fear, and pursue understanding with an open heart. And when you choose sincerity, something remarkable happens. Both God and truth begin to reveal themselves, often in ways you never expected. Armin realized that those who look for God without seeking truth often fall into extremes. They defend ideas they don't fully understand. They speak with certainty, but listen very little. They follow rules without questioning, and in the name of faith, sometimes create division rather than unity. Extremism, he saw, is often a sign of misplaced devotion. On the other hand, those who seek truth without humility can become arrogant. They may know facts, question deeply, and challenge beliefs. But without compassion and a pure heart, truth can harden into pride. Knowledge without love can isolate a person from a very humanity they hope to understand. But for those who seek truth with sincerity, with humility and a heart open to learning, the journey becomes transformative. God, Armin discovered, is found not only in temples, mosques, or churches, but in kindness, in the small acts of empathy and compassion that connect humans to one another. God is found in justice, in standing for what is right even when it is difficult. God is found in silence, in moments of reflection where we confront ourselves honestly. And God is found in self-reflection, in the courage to admit doubt, error, and imperfection. Armin never claimed to have all the answers. He understood that life is full of questions, and certainty is often an illusion. But he finally felt a profound peace, a peace that did not depend on winning debates, proving beliefs, or convincing others. And in that peace, he realized something crucial. Perhaps the real sign of being close to God is not certainty, ritual, or outward devotion, but the ability to live sincerely, with an open heart, and with the courage to seek truth wherever it leads. After years of searching, Armin understood that the journey itself, when approached with honesty and love, is the closest thing to finding God.